Hey, what's going on, guys? We are back. Baseball Banter is back, and this time it's not a 7-year hiatus. As always, before we get this thing going, you know how we got to start this. As always, I'm joined by my brother from another mother, kid with the not so golden locks, Mike Hewitt. What is going on, Mikey boy? How are you, buddy?
John, we're one day away from the World Series, man. Let's get it going.
Can you believe? Can you believe that these playoffs went so quick, and now we're just one game, or actually one day? They call this World Series Eve. You ever heard of that before? Like I was listening to MLB Network Radio, and people are comparing it to Christmas. World Series Eve.
I never heard of that before, but we have an interesting matchup, one that neither one of us predicted. That's for sure.
Well, all I know is that my bracket compared to yours, I predicted it dead nuts. I predicted every single one of them perfectly, and as always, you were wrong.
Well, that's partially true, but no, I was way wrong, man. I mean, my prediction was Mets Blue Jays. I wanted to go with something a little bit different, but I think a combined record of 1-4. So, yeah, not even close.
Well, good thing you didn't bet your house. You'd be in a fridge box right now.
It's true.
All right. So now that we're to the World Series, let's first start off by talking about what do you think of the playoffs so far? What's your general consensus in your thoughts about how the playoffs went? Did you enjoy it? Too fast? Good series?
So I guess I'll start with the format real fast, and I'll just say, this is the first year of the new format, and my original takeaway is that I like this format. I think, first of all, I love having postseason baseball on, pretty much all day. I mean, there were several days where you had 4 games. I mean, with that wild card round, I mean, it was a lot of them were sweeps, but you had potential for 3 straight days of 4 games, all pretty important. And I thought the one thing that people were worried about with the 1 game playoff being removed is that you're going to kind of lose that urgency. But I felt like that even though game one isn't a winner go home game, it was still crucial. And then you have game two, which is an elimination game, and a lot of the series did end up ending in sweeps of 2 games. But I really liked the format. There were certainly some surprises. For me, honestly, I thought I thought the Mets were the biggest surprise. I thought the Blue Jays were the second biggest surprise. The Yankees getting swept against Houston was a surprise to me, but I think the biggest of all surprises is having the Philadelphia Phillies represent the National League for the World Series this year. And this is a
Yeah.
team that tied with Milwaukee, and they didn't clinch the playoffs, I don't think, until the day before the last day of the regular season. So definitely not a team I would have thought would make the run that they have.
Last year they wouldn't even if the playoff format was the same as last year, they're not even in the playoffs this year. Like this is like the ultimate squeak in like to even make it. But I want one of your opinions here, real quick. I'll give my quick take. The fact that you had so many playoff games in succession, to where like I had like my tablet out and my phone, I'm watching on my TV because we had so many marathon games this postseason. It was really weird because you had that one game in Cleveland when they played Tampa Bay, which was a pretty epic ass game where it went 15 innings, and then Gonzalez hit that home run, and then you had that game in the Mariners Houston. My biggest surprise was is how the hell did Seattle not even able to score a damn run in Seattle?
I know, right? 20 years they were waiting to get a home playoff game and they couldn't score a run in 18 innings. I mean, kind of
Now I want to ask
unbelievable.
you this, Mikey boy. Those extra inning games, people don't like the runner on second base, but those extra inning games, I thought the 15 inning game with the Guardians and Rays was very exciting because like it was back and forth. But I thought that 18 inning game was a completely snore fest. What did you think?
You know, so I texted my family, during that Astros Mariners game, and yeah, to me, I think regular season, runner on second, I'm all for that. Playoffs, I think you have to continue playing the game the way it's meant to be played with no runners being put out, no ghost runners at all. But you know, it just turned out to be, I think, just it was a unique game. It was 0-0 in 18 innings. I mean, the odds of I wouldn't change the rules just because of a freak game. I mean, how many times are you going to see a game being 0-0 for that long? If it
But
was,
2 in 1 postseason, Mikey boy, of
yeah,
that.
yeah, don't get me wrong. I think the lack of offense in some of those games, yeah, everyone wants to see more offense, but um, I wouldn't make any rule changes. I still don't think putting a ghost runner on second base in the playoffs is a way I would like to see a series decided. So yeah, boring. That game was boring and it ended 1-0. But that's just what you get sometimes in the postseason. I had no issue with it.
See, I thought the 18 inning game, I was ready for it to be over because it was just such a snore fest. It was like there was very few hits, but I thought the 15 inning game was kind of epic. For me, I think that if they have another postseason like this, where they have like games of that kind of marathon length, there should be an addendum to where like after the 12th inning, you get 3 innings regular, but after the 12th, like come on, bro, the second.
Okay, no, you know what? I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I guess after 3 innings, I mean, yeah, I mean, if I was at the game, would I have wanted to stay there for what was it, 6, 7 hours? I mean, it was
Yeah,
unbelievable.
it
I
was insane.
mean, you know, when fans are, I guess if you're going to start having people leave a playoff game before it ends, that's not in the interest of MLB or anybody. I mean, if you're having people say, you know what, I'd rather leave this than watch this playoff game, which is supposed to be meaningful. It was the first playoff game for the Mariners at home in 21 years. If people are not staying to the end because they're bored, then yeah, maybe there should be. I guess maybe you've changed my mind. Maybe there should be some sort of, all right, after 12 innings, we got to do something to try and generate some sort of offense.
Yeah, because that's that one. You got to think Seattle was coming into a series where they had no days off because they were the wild card team, and then if they would have somehow miraculously won that game, their pitching was already thin because they already were on this marathon where they played the Blue Jays and it was just game after game after game. And then if they'd have somehow won that game after 18 innings, I don't know who they would have put out there, the very next day. But that just goes to show you how deep Houston's pitching was. I mean, they literally did it like nothing and then moved on. The one last thing I want to talk about before we move on to the next topic. Now that we've seen this craziness of teams getting knocked out so early, Braves, Dodgers, Mets, and really the AL is the only side that played out that people thought of how it was going to play out by. Do you think next year, because I see a lot of people bitching about this, do you think in the interest of having the best teams in it for the longest amount of time that they should reseed after the wild card round so that certain seeds like the 2 seeds don't quote unquote get an advantage because where they're at due to layoffs and everything else like that? Would you like to see them reseeded after the wild card?
I mean, this is kind of a milk toast answer. My honest feeling is I wouldn't care either way. I'm not passionate about it either way. I do think that, you know, for baseball's best interest, is it great that, yeah, you had all these? I mean, look at the National League particularly. You had the Braves, the Mets, the Dodgers, and the Cardinals to a lesser extent all get knocked out in the first round, two of which got eliminated in the first weekend. And, you know, is that what baseball wants? Does baseball want to see the teams that performed the best out of the regular season get knocked out so quickly? And I would say probably not. But as far as reseeding goes, no, no, I don't really care if they do reseed. Not a big deal. But if they don't and keep it the way it is, I'm fine with that too. What's your take on it?
I'm going to quote a video that you love where I say, just get outs when I was talking about Joe Nathan. Just get wins. I don't want to hear excuses. The Dodgers have a massive payroll. They're choke artists. They got bounced. The Mets, they were already walking on thin ice. They didn't get the job done against the Braves. The Padres come in. Trent Grisham goes off after being a no one for the entire of the season. They get bounced. You had DeGrom. You had Scherzer. You had a good bullpen. You had plenty of players that could have stepped up and did something. You didn't get the wins you needed. You got bounced. The Braves absolutely looked like they were out there playing fucking pinball wizard. Spencer Strider goes out there and gets lit up. I don't want to hear anyone crying about that. It's the seeds. It's the layoff. Fuck that. The Dodgers won 111 games. The Padres won 87. Or no, what they won 88. The Phillies won 87. I don't want to hear that shit. They had to play more teams. It doesn't matter about the layoff. They had better teams against those teams. Win fucking ball games at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, if you're the best team in baseball, it shouldn't matter who you play. I mean, if you want to be the champion, you should be able to beat anybody in any series. And yeah, you know, if you're going to decipher, okay, we would have beat Philly, but we couldn't beat San Diego. I mean, then I guess you're not that great. So,
No. And you know something? Didn't affect the Astros. And the Astros had one of the longest layoffs out of all of them.
oh yeah, as far as the layoff is concerned, you know, yeah, I don't. I feel like those teams would want the extra rest. I mean, it's not like they were off for 2 weeks. They had 4 or 5 days, which if you go back and look at the way previous postseasons have been handled, that's kind of how it would go originally. The season would end on a Sunday, and then the LDS usually was the American League wouldn't start until Thursday, so it would be like about 3.5, 4 days off. I think this year it was 5, but I don't think the extra rest hurt. And like you just said, yeah, in the National League, a lot of weird things happened, but I think that speaks more about the teams than it does about the way the format was, because in the American League, Houston got through Seattle in 3 games. It wasn't easy, but they got through them in three. And the Yankees, took them five, but they still got past Cleveland. So the layoff appeared to affect teams in the National League, and I think those are teams that normally choke anyways. So I don't think it's a format problem.
I agree. So let's now go on to this postseason. We've already kind of hinted at it with some answers. Crazy series. What do you think is the more unlikely storyline of this past postseason? The Padres bouncing not only the Mets, but the Dodgers, or the Phillies being in the damn World Series?
I guess it's, I would say San Diego, because on the one hand, I didn't think St. Louis was great, and, Philadelphia definitely surprised me. I didn't think Zach Wheeler was going to be.
Well, looks like we got Mikey Boy here on a technical difficulty. We will sit here and wait. There he goes. He's back.
All right. Did you catch anything I was saying?
Yeah, Mike paid his internet bill. He's back, guys. Don't worry. His lights are on in his house. He paid his bill, Comcast. Let him have his internet back.
Yes. No, I was just going to say, I think San Diego's story was more impressive because, the Mets, I know they had struggled, but they still had to go on the road and beat Scherzer. They lost to DeGrom, but then they forced a game three, and the offense came out. I mean, you said Trent Grisham. I mean, he went off for a guy that didn't do anything offensively the entire season, and then for him to he had a few homers in that series, and yeah, the Dodgers are choking dogs in the playoffs. We all know that, but that was still a team that dominated the Padres all season long, and for San Diego to take care of them in 4 games,
15-5.
yeah.
Bounce them.
I think on Philadelphia's side, so I would say San Diego was more surprising. On Philadelphia's side, yeah, St. Louis, pretty good team, and I didn't think Philadelphia was all that great, but I think Atlanta. It's not easy for teams to repeat. It's not easy for teams to even get back to the LCS year after year after year. I mean, the Braves were in the NLCS now. What's it been, like 3 of the last 4 or 5 years? They've been in the NLCS, so it's not that easy to constantly be in the final two in your league. So it didn't surprise me that the Braves got beat in the first round. It did. That I thought they were much better than Philadelphia, but again, it's just the task to get to the LCS year after year is not easy, and in a best of 5 that can happen. So I think for me, San Diego beating the Mets, kicking Max Scherzer out. I mean, he was booed off the field. That's how much they hit him in game 1. And then beating the Dodgers after they got owned by them all season long. Yeah, that was more surprising to me. What about you?
Well, this is turning out to be the shittiest baseball banter we've ever done because for the first time ever, we just agree on everything, Mikey Boy. For sure, it's got to be the Padres because, when the trade was made to get Juan Soto, the Padres were the most average ball club of all time for the rest of the season. And everyone's sitting there going, well, it's wait till Tatis comes back. Well, Tatis got stuck, sticking a needle up his butt and then said it was ringworm cream. And he ain't come back till next year now. So now all of a sudden, after Brandon Drury literally has one good game with the Padres, Josh Bell fell off the face of the earth as soon as he took off the Walgreens W for some San Diego Brown. And then Juan Soto doesn't really do much at all. Everyone's going, well, the Padres, they're built for the postseason, but they really didn't do anything the whole time after the Juan Soto trade. But they get into the postseason, and all of a sudden, it's just like a light switch turned on. Trent Grisham comes out of nowhere. They're pitching like that. I think one of the best games this postseason, I don't know if you agree with me, was the Joe Musgrove game where they checked his ears.
Yeah, that was a great game. And I will say, it looked like there was something on his ears, man.
But every start after that, dude, his ears were always shiny, bro.
I know, but it looked funky. I will be honest. But the Mets, the Mets didn't deserve it. They didn't pitch great, so they deserve to go home. But his ears looked a little shiny to me.
The only reason why, and I'm not gonna sit here and make excuses for any team because I don't give a shit. I'm not a fan of either team. But I think there's 2 games. The only reason why the Phillies made it. Game 1 in Atlanta.
Totally.
If Atlanta completes that comeback when they lost 7-6, Phillies aren't in the World Series right now because that series changes. Because They lose game one, then win game two, and then Strider gets destroyed game three, and then they get destroyed again in game four. And then you look at the following series with San Diego, Mike Clevenger's game, where after they scored him 4 runs in the first inning, and then they get shit wrecked right after that. And then you got to remember Juan Soto hits a home run that game, a 2-run shot, and they still lose because their bullpen, San Diego's bullpen, and a lot of people are blaming Bob Melvin, especially for the game where Harper put the finishing touch with that home run that Josh Hader wasn't in there for 6 outs. But you also got to remember that Josh Hader's been a little bit injury prone, and he was really bad from the time he got traded from Milwaukee for the first couple of weeks in San Diego. It wasn't until recently where Hader was looking like Hader again. So
And
no, what are you gonna say?
well, don't forget the wild card round. I mean, in game one of the wild card round against the Cardinals, they had to come back in the ninth inning down. They were down, I think, 2 runs in the ninth inning. And basically, I forgot who was closing for St. Louis, but he pretty much walked the park. And then
Yeah,
Philadelphia scored 4 or 5 runs in the ninth inning. If they lose game
I
one
don't
of
know.
that
That
round,
was game one. They were down 2-0, and they
yeah,
scored 6.
yeah, they lose that game, they might get bounced in the first weekend. I mean, it goes to show that just all sometimes it takes is one win, one turnaround game to really to change a series. So don't
The
forget about that one. That kind of kickstarted their little run.
Yeah, I forgot about that because and everyone said this a million times. It's such a generic phrase, but it's not always the best team that makes it. It's the hottest team. And the one thing that Philly's been able to do as an offensive whole, like they haven't been really that impressive. Their team is full of a lot of strikeouts. Like if you look at Reese Hoskins in the last series, all of his hits were home runs and everything else was a strikeout. But they've been getting the biggest hits at the biggest times.
Yeah, timely hits for sure, definitely.
And that could be more in the playoffs especially. And when you and I were talking about the preview of the postseason, and you and I both said this, pitching always out trumps good hitting. I would say 8 out of 10 times. But the team that can get the clutch hit, the team that can hit the home run when it counts the most, a la Bryce Harper in the clinching game, that sometimes is all you really need if you can get just enough pitching. Now, like I said, to finish off our thought, the San Diego one to me is by far the more surprising storyline because the Dodgers should have walked them based off of what they did in the 15-5 going into the regular season. The Mets by far had better pitching than them, and they should have beat them. But there was chinks in the Mets armor, and you already seen it coming into the postseason when they couldn't beat the Braves. They got swept by the Cubs earlier that month. So but still, for them to make it and for them to be there, and all of a sudden we seen this team that was like, the players that they said were going to actually, we're supposed to do something. Next year, I don't know if you saw this comment, but AJ Preller, he was at a press conference and they asked him, they're like, where do you see Fernando Tatis playing next year? And he goes, hopefully on the field. And I couldn't believe a fucking GM roasted his player like that. But I think the Padres, if they go on, I think they're gonna have to get another starting pitcher and work on the back end of their bullpen a little bit more. But with that team, with Tatis next year, they could be nasty, and maybe get a little bit further next year because, like, let's be honest, like Philly, I don't think I picked the Braves to be the repeat in the NL, but like, come on, do you think the Phillies are gonna be there again next year?
No,
Like, this is like a good Cinderella
they'll
story.
be in the hunt though. They won't be
Oh
bad.
yeah, for sure. Now, moving into the World Series part of it, and let's start working on our predictions here. Uh, let's go team by team here. Overall strength, we both got to agree. It's the Astros by far. Like, let's start with the pitching. Starting stats comparatively, where do you sit on them compared one to each other?
John, my internet did cut out. Can you just briefly ask that question one more time?
All right, so moving on to the World Series here, let's go phase by each one of these teams, looking at overall strength of these teams. Let's start with starting pitching. Overall, where do you set these staffs against one another?
I'm taking Houston, and I don't think it's that close. I mean, I think Zach Wheeler's been unbelievable. I don't trust Aaron Nola. Ranger Suarez, I'm not really thrilled about. I mean, don't get me wrong, Philadelphia's bullpen is, well, I know we'll get into the bullpen in a second, but no, I think from a starting rotation standpoint, I like Houston's rotation a lot. I mean, I know Verlander didn't look great, but Christian Javier is nasty, and Framber Valdez has been really, really good. And I think the bullpen's you can't you can talk about the starting rotation, but you got to really almost include the bullpen in this conversation because I think Houston's bullpen is also extremely strong and better than Philadelphia's.
Now, you're probably not going to believe this because of what I said about the Astros basically walking everyone in our prediction video in the playoffs. But I think the Phillies rotation has shown they could steal one. And Verlander has never won a game in the World Series, which is kind of hard to believe. But if you look, '06, he got shit wrecked before the Cardinals won in 5. 12, Pablo Sandoval hits 2 fucking home runs off of him before the fourth inning. And then in 17, I think he got a no decision a couple of the times in the World Series when they won it. So I think that Nola and or Wheeler is capable of stealing one game away from Houston, whether it's the first one, whether it's the fourth or fifth game. I think they are capable of stealing it. But overall depth, like it's not really much of a conversation because after Nola Wheeler, like they have what are they going to put Syndergaard in game 4? Like they literally have no one in the back end of their rotation. It's not very good. But Nola and Wheeler is a scary combination. And anyone that sits there and takes that Phillies lineup not seriously and not capable of putting a 5 spot on the board and their pitchers doing just enough, getting the ball to like Sir Anthony Dominguez or Jose Alvarado, that's how you get upset and that's how you get beat by taking them not serious enough, by not looking at past track record and not realizing that this team can hit timely home runs and they can pitch just enough if you get the ball to the bullpen with the lead after the 7th inning. So don't sleep on that aspect of it because they're capable of it and they've shown it. But overall starting pitching, it's definitely the Houston Astros. But the Phillies, they will surprise you. They're sneaky. For bullpen wise, like you had already said, like it's not even worth discussing it. Like the fucking Astros literally have one of the best bullpens on base. When they went 18 innings and they're just like, yeah, we'll put Hunter Brown out there. Hunter Brown's chuck zeros. We'll put uh, Javier out there. He just chucks up zeros. Like it's insane. It's like stupid. And they could literally have a starter go out in the 3rd inning and still be okay. How insane is that shit?
Oh,
So now let's go and look at the overall lineups. Previewing them, both teams have some pop. Both teams are capable of putting runs up. But if you look since the DS, really the Astros lineup, they've had a couple of decent-ish games putting up some runs. Bregman had some big home runs. Jeremy Pena was the MVP. He absolutely went off. But you look, Jose Altuve has been horrible, and Yordan Alvarez has been really cold
Kyle
since.
Tucker's been quiet too.
Yeah, Kyle Tucker's been really quiet. And you look on the other side, Rhys Hoskins, big home run palooza. Bryce Harper, absolutely locked in. JT Realmuto's been good. What do you think, Mikey boy? If you're looking at the lineups right now as they sit with the hot, cold players,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's hard to discount what Philadelphia has done, and like you said, the timely hitting has been huge. I also don't really think it matters. I mean, remember back like 7 years ago, Daniel Murphy on the New York Mets. He
oh,
had
he
like
was
a great
awesome.
postseason. Yeah, like the
20,
NLDS, he hit a couple
baby.
homers with the Dodgers. Then he hammered the Cubs.
Yep.
Then he got the World Series, and he didn't do a whole lot offensively. I think that it's it's kind of a boring answer, but I really don't think to this point it really matters. I think that once tomorrow starts, that's in the past. It's a best of 7. Obviously, I think Philadelphia is not afraid of the moment. I think those hitters have shown it. In big moments they can come up big. I think Houston, they've been the best team all year long. So they've been here before. So I don't think anything phases them. The better lineup, I would say, it's close.
It's
I'm
cold.
gonna go. I'm gonna go with. I'd go with Houston, but it's really close, and Philadelphia could easily hang 7 or 8 up, on this Astros rotation, despite how good it is. I mean, they have some power, small ballparks. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some high scoring games.
Crawford boxes for Rhys Hoskins. Can't
Yeah,
forget that. So it's kind of crazy to sit here and think because, if you were looking at these lineups come start of the postseason, like you'd be like Phillies aren't even close to as good as the Astros. But the last team to beat the Astros was the Phillies. and Aaron Nola's the last pitcher to beat the Astros when they clinched the playoff berth. But if you're gonna go based off of what's going on right now, like it could go one of two ways. Either Jordan and Jose Altuve are about to just explode because they've been held down for the last, couple of games over the last series in the CS, or they're going to continue to be cold. And you got to think too that the Phillies have some pretty decent left-handed relievers as well, like to help shut down guys like Tucker and Jordan as well. And Jose Altuve really hasn't done much to get himself out of his hole. Like he's had like a couple of infield singles and whatnot like that. So it's kind of hard to believe that we're sitting here and it's actually a question of what lineup is better. Because based off of the names and the talent, you would say it's the Astros. But I think the scariest thing with me, and the one thing, like I said, you got to respect with Phillies lineup is just how quick they can put up runs and how timely their home runs have been. And the Astros have been doing that ish, but really not to like the degree of the Phillies. So for right now, I want to give it a push, and that's such a pussy way out of it. So I gotta lean one which way or the other. I think right now, because of how good the Phillies lineup has been and how hot some of their hitters are, I can't do that. I'd say Astros. That's such a shitty way to go out of it. But I can't do it. It's like I want to say it's the Phillies because of the track record and how hot they've been. But I think Jordan Alvarez is about to be the MVP of the CS. I'm calling it, or the World Series right now. I'm calling it because I think this guy's about to go off. He's a fucking stud. He can hit right-handers. All of the best pitchers on the Phillies are right-handers. They're starters. I don't know. I think it's a good formula. Okay, so we already did starters, bullpens, lineups. Let's give overall predictions to wrap up this episode of Baseball Banter. The Triumphant Return Part 2, baby. What are you going? Who's winning what and how many games?
All right, I'll say this. I think the longer the series goes, the more it favors the Phillies. I
Yep.
think Houston, my pick is Houston's gonna win this in 5 games, and I think that's the only way they do win it. I think that look, they faced no adversity really this postseason. Yes, I mean they had some challenging games against the Mariners. They still swept them in 3 games. They never got down in a series. They haven't lost this postseason. They're undefeated. I think they have the first 2 games at home. They get up 2-0. They go on the road to Philadelphia. Maybe they wrap it up there. I think if Philadelphia, like you said, if Zach Wheeler steals game 1, right, and like Philadelphia's offense, I mean, if that series goes back to Philadelphia 1-1, and then get game 3 is going to be huge. I think if it goes 6 or 7 games, if it goes 7 games, I'm taking the Phillies. If it goes 6 games, I still think Philly can win it. I think Houston has to wrap this up in 4 or 5 games. And I think they're totally capable of doing so. They're like one of those, they're a buzzsaw. This has been a team, they've been the most consistent team in the American League all season long. They dominated their division. They've dominated the postseason. Finished the job. You're superior than the Philadelphia Phillies. This should not be a series. I know Philadelphia's played great. They beat the Cardinals. They beat the Braves. They beat the Padres. This is their fourth series. I mean, a lot of the big talking point was, is the format, is the extra couple of games going to come back and bite a team for the extra games played? Now, they played a couple more games in Houston, but they finished the Padres pretty quickly, and they saved a game against the Braves. So I don't think they're too fatigued. I think at this point everyone's running on full adrenaline, but I think Houston wins this in 5. I think it's going to be pretty easy and pretty disappointing. I think the best series that we've seen so far are going to be in the early part, and that the DS and World Series is going to be kind of a bust. But I think in this season and with these two teams, that's the way it should be. Houston should win this in 5 games, no less than that. And if it does go 6 or 7, I mean, I don't know. And also Dusty Baker, it'd be his first chance for his first ring, and if it goes 7 games, just because of Dusty Baker's history in Game 7s, I'm going with the other team. So I think Philadelphia does not force 7, and I think Houston wins in 5 or 6.
Yep, I think it's Houston in 5 as well. But let me ask you this: if Houston sweeps and they go undefeated in the postseason, that's the most impressive postseason run you think we've ever saw?
It's definitely got to be,
Is that ever
considered.
done in this kind of a format where they had that many straight wins?
No, I
That'd be
don't.
12, right? Do we 12 wins or 11 wins?
Yeah, I mean, this would be dominant. Yeah, I mean, certainly you'd have to look at that, and I think for baseball, it'd be good for the league in that it would kind of make some of the talking of the cheating allegations. And listen, they did cheat back in 2017; it was proven. But I think it would kind of put some of that talk to rest, saying, you know what, yes, they did cheat, but this is an organization that has continually found its way to be back at the top of the league. And I mean, this would be what they made the World Series like this week. This is their fifth pennant,
Fifth. Yeah.
fifth pennant. So I mean, yeah, they don't have the World Series rings to back it, other than the year they did cheat. But you know, five pennants is something. There's something to be said about that, especially in the American League. There have been some really good teams in that coming out of the league over the last 5-6 years, and I think a second World Series title would kind of put some of that talk to rest, which I think would be good for the sport. But I mean, the best story here would be if Philadelphia wins with Bryce Harper and kind of an underdog team. I mean, my heart's with the Phillies. I mean, I'm pulling for the Phillies, but
Oh, you are such a pansy. You don't give two shits about the Phillies.
I don't. But you know
You
what?
want to
I
quiet
like I like
because
upsets,
the
man. I
Red
don't like
Sox
the
beat the
Astros.
Astros.
I
That
don't like the Houston Astros.
what year was that, Mike? Where the Red Sox lost game one and then they won four straight against the Astros? Was that 18?
That was 18.
Yeah, I'll never forget that because like the Astros like whooped the Red Sox ass that first game, and then it was just a straight sweep. You know what that was? That Andrew Benintendi game where he made that game-saving catch in left field.
Yeah.
That was a great series. But I think the coolest thing would be is like you don't realize like how many teams Dusty Baker has, like how close he's been to the winning the World Series. Like 0-2, they should have beat the Angels,
Yep.
and then they went 7 against the Nats. So it would be really cool to see Dusty Baker win one. And I would just love for people to stop talking about 2017 because on the Compound podcast the other day, they were talking about that, and Ian Happ was saying that there was other shit going on in the league in 17. It wasn't just the Astros. For fuck's sake, your Red Sox got in trouble for using technology in the dugout. The Yankees got in trouble for using Apple Watches in the dugout and all this other bullshit. They have been stealing signs, using lights, new technology, all this other bullshit. The Astros just use analytics to figure out that trash can banging was the best way to go. That's all it was. But you'd be fucking damn full of shit. You're telling me they weren't the only ones stealing signs off the center field camera. It's not. It has nothing to do with that. They are a good franchise. The fact that you've gone to the LCS this many years in a row is going to be your fourth World Series appearance in 6 years. That's pretty impressive. Now, I would say, but let's wrap this up on this quick question because I actually want to get your opinion on this. The Giants won at 10, 12, 14. I would consider that a mini dynasty. Now the Astros only winning 1-17, but 4 in 6 years. You can't really consider that a dynasty, can you?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Because you didn't win it. At least the Giants won it 3 times in was it 5 years?
Yeah, they weren't knocking on the door every year though. Because they missed the playoffs in the 2 years. I think they didn't win the World Series. I think the 3 years they qualified, they won it. But
Because
yeah,
I think the Bills of a dynasty in the '90s when they made it to the 4 Super Bowls.
yeah, didn't win one.
And
Yeah, I think if Philadelphia goes on and beat the Astros, and you look back, in like 10, 15 years at that Houston mini run, we'll just call it, because I wouldn't call it a dynasty, just that run, like, damn, remember the Astros? They were good for like 6 years. I would say if they only win one title, then that's kind of a failure. I mean, I look back, how are you going to view the Dodgers over the last 10 years? I mean, to me,
yeah,
I look at that team
kind of
as,
like the Braves.
yeah, I mean, is that a dynasty? It's like, yeah, the Dodgers they're a great team, but they're going to be looked at as one of the biggest letdowns in the 2010s to the early 2020s, because for all the wins they get in the regular season, they never make it count in the postseason. So yeah, I think if Houston doesn't get another title to kind of solidify their run, then yeah, they'll just be looked at as a team that they won one of the first years they got there, and then they never won again.
I think you congratulate on organizational consistency, but damn wonder what if based off of only one title.
Right.
That's what I would say. It's great to be in the dance, but if you're always dancing with the fat chick and you don't have the hottest one in the room, then who gives a shit? You know what I'm saying? Anybody can buy a ticket. You want the fucking whole thing, brother. You want to be a homecoming king and queen. You don't give a shit about drinking the spiked punch. You want all of it, buddy. So I think that's a good place to end it. And hopefully we'll be back. Since this is going to be it for the last baseball banter, I would say for the year, because there's no point of making one after the World Series. Uh, Next year, and I'm going to put Mike on the spot, but next year I would like to do baseball banter again on a semi-consistent basis because Mike is out here trying to become Doogie Howser real life. And I congratulate Mike for doing that because he's a lot smarter than I am when it comes to career choice and field. And Mike's a very smart guy, and he has a lot more ambition to do better things than I do in real life. So next year, baseball banter, I would like to bring back in some kind of capacity. With Mike and my younger brother, because Mike can't always commit the time that this requires back when we were like 10 years younger doing this shit. But next year, I'd like to have Mike back at least a couple episodes a month, maybe 1 to 2 episodes. What do you think about that, Mikey boy?
Oh, totally. I mean, this is a blast for me. I enjoy doing this, and just seeing a few comments on the video we made, 3 weeks ago was cool to see, and obviously, it's a great time. So we'll see what with the time commitments what they allow for me to do. But yeah, two times a month should not be a problem. It's a once a week show anyways, so I feel like that would be good. And
And you can bring back the locks, maybe wear a wig one episode.
yeah, we'll bring back the blonde hair for an episode just to freak some
But the
people
gray
out.
hoodie, you got to have the gray hoodie too.
Eminem, man,
That's right.
be all G'd up.
All right, guys. So that's enough for this episode. We'll be back next year. Baseball banter. Tiger videos coming soon about off-season outlook. I've been horrible about doing that video, but I'm waiting on my little brother. You can blame him. All right, guys. Have a good one.